Are you dreaming of visiting Switzerland? Planning a trip to Switzerland is very exciting, but it can also be overwhelming. How do you choose which of the many scenic cities, towns and villages to visit? Which mountaintop excursions should you take? And what's the best way to get around Switzerland? And of course, how much of the country can you realistically see within your time frame? If you've asked yourself any of these questions, this is the podcast for you. This is the Holidays to Switzerland travel podcast, and in each episode, your host Carolyn Schonnefinger chats with Swiss travel experts to answer your most commonly asked questions, provide practical tips, and take you on a virtual visit to the most popular destinations, and of course some hidden gems to help you plan your dream trip to Switzerland. And you'll hear plenty of conversations about Swiss cheese and chocolate too. Are you ready to plan your trip to Switzerland? Well, let's get started.
Hello and welcome to episode 72 of the podcast. Thanks for joining me today. Is a visit to Interlaken and the Jungfrau region part of your Swiss travel plans? For many visitors to Switzerland, the lure of the Bernese Alps and the stunning natural beauty of the area around Interlaken is hard to resist. With mountains, lakes, glaciers, gorges and waterfalls all within easy reach, Interlaken is the gateway to the Jungfrau region and is a fantastic place to base yourself during your visit to the area. But Interlaken has more to offer than just its spectacular scenery too. With adventure sports, culture, customs and traditions, historical sites, and an endless list of excursion possibilities, you really can experience all of Switzerland in one place. In previous episodes of the podcast, we've learnt about some of the Jungfrau region's famous mountain peaks, like the Jungfraujoch and Schilthorn, and about Interlaken itself. So in today's episode, we're going to explore the Interlaken Holiday Region further. I'm joined today by Renato Julier, who is here to tell us all about the wonderful things to see and do around the region's two beautiful lakes, Lake Brienz and Lake Thun. Nestled either side of Interlaken, a visit to one or both lakes is a must-do when you are in the region, as you'll discover in my conversation with Renato. Before we get started, let's say thank you to the Switzerland Tourism team for sponsoring the podcast. Make sure you visit their website, myswitzerland.com, for loads of tips and inspiration to help with your trip planning. If you need the train ride of a lifetime, you need Switzerland. And what better region is there to explore by train than the Interlaken Holiday Region? Let's hear all about it from Renato. Hi, Renato. Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you back after quite a long time since you last appeared on the show.
Yes. Hi, Carolyn. Good to be back.
Great. So for those listeners who haven't heard you previously on the podcast, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and your background in the tourism industry?
Well, my name is Renato Julier. I grew up in the Valley, which is in the southwestern part of Switzerland. So it's a bilingual canton, you could say, region in Switzerland where I grew up. I started to work for Interlaken 6 years ago already in my function as Director Markets. I'm a tourism and marketing expert, and I'm handling different markets for Interlaken, especially also the markets Australia, New Zealand, Japan, GCC, and Italy.
Mm. So a wide range of countries there that you promote Interlaken to.
That's true.
Great. So now Interlaken is one of the most popular destinations in Switzerland. What is it about Interlaken that attracts so many visitors every year?
This is a very simple question because there is one reason why people want to travel to Switzerland, want to discover Switzerland. And reason number one is always nature. In Interlaken, it's a little bit different because you have the chance to discover not only nature wonders, not only mountains, lakes, or waterfalls. You have also the chance to jump into culture, for example. Interlaken is standing for all of Switzerland in one place. So whatever you have in mind, Switzerland, like glaciers, mountains, lakes, tradition, Interlaken has it all. And I think that also the story behind Interlaken is very interesting. So in the past, it was a kind of a monastery place, so people used to get there. Always about in the year 1800. So the Interlaken's reputation in tourism started. So people wanted to go there because they really found it was the perfect place for holidays. Interlaken is also very well known as the gateway to the Jungfrau region, to the mountain area, and it was very easy reachable. It also during this time it had a lot to offer. Until 1891, Interlaken was very well known under another name. It was called Aarmühle, which means Aar Mill. The Aare is the river which is passing through Interlaken, actually through different canals. Due to marketing reasons, they decided already 1891 to change their name into Interlaken, which comes from the Latin word interlacus, which means between the lakes. And it was quite a good decision because after this, we had nice events already with the Unspunnen Festival. It was a folklore festival already in the 19th century, and 1912 we had already the Jungfrau railways with their cogwheel train to Jungfrau Joch, top of Europe, to the highest train station in Europe, who ruled, who gave us a little bit more reputation to Interlaken, and it started the real tourism industry. Actually, in Interlaken, you will find about 200 hotels. We have 40 group accommodation, 21 campings. There is a golf course, there is a casino, and there's also a lot to discover and a lot of adventure. And there are a lot of points of interest who are very easy reachable by bus, by train, and also by boat, even in walking distance. And Interlaken has also a wide range of international restaurants and a lot of shopping facilities.
Mm-hmm. So I guess you could sum it up by saying that Interlaken attracts so many visitors because it's got everything that anyone could possibly want when they're going on a holiday.
Yes, that's true. So the infrastructure is very nice. We can offer a lot of things, not only for individual travelers, also for families. Interlaken is also very well known as the European capital of adventure. So you can also define it as the Queenstown of Switzerland or the Queenstown of Europe. So a lot of people want to come to Interlaken for getting their once-in-a-lifetime experience, like paragliding, bungee jumping, or skydiving. And I think also to get there, it's a perfect hub, because from Zurich Airport there is a direct train. Actually, all 2 hours there is or every 2 hours there is a direct train which is connecting Zurich Airport with Interlaken. So you can reach Interlaken in a very relaxed atmosphere already. You need only 3 hours from Milan, even from the southern part. It's very easy, reachable. Or also from Geneva, you need about 3 hours. And then, of course, Interlaken lies not in the heart of Switzerland, but in the heart of the Bernese Oberland, at the foot of the famous mountain trio Eiger, Mönch and Jungfrau. which everybody knows. These three mountains are probably, I would say, the most famous mountains in Switzerland, with the Matterhorn. But they have also a quite interesting story behind of alpinism, and thanks to this as well, there is we have a very nice product, and also some nice offers.
Right. So yeah, there really is something for everyone. It's the ideal destination. When you were last on the podcast, we chatted mainly about Interlaken, the town itself, but I know that the Interlaken Holiday Region actually encompasses the lakes that are on either side of Interlaken as well. So today I'd like to focus a bit more on those two lakes and just share some of the delights of Lake Thun and Lake Brienz with our listeners. Could you start by giving us a bit of an insight into the two lakes and some of the differences perhaps between them?
So when we are talking about the Interlaken Holiday Region, we are always talking about the whole lake region. So we have also to talk about one side. In one hand, it's the side of Lake Brienz. With Brienz itself, it's a very nice village which lies at Lake Brienz. It's the wood carving village or wood carving capital of Switzerland. So if you want to see wooden sculptures, even wooden cows, they're also producing violins, for example, or cellos in the city of Brienz. You have to go definitely there. So Lake Brienz, this is a very shiny turquoise green lake. It's about 14 kilometers long. The surface is about 30 square kilometers. And at his deepest point, it's about 260 meters. So it's actually one of the deepest lakes in Switzerland. It's also one of the cleanest lakes in Switzerland. So it's really one of the biggest and deepest alpine lakes in Switzerland. And the water is very pure. There are not a lot of fishes inside, unfortunately, because the water is really clean. It's too clean that fishes would have a lot of problems or quite a high challenge to find some nutrition. Lake Brienz, it's a perfect spot for people who want to relax. And of course, there are a lot of points of interest which you shouldn't miss. If you compare it with Lake Thun on the other side, there is a little bit, I would say, much more to see. Lake Thun is about 17 kilometers long, the whole lake. It's about, at its deepest point, it's about 270 meters. At Lake Thun, you find a lot of different villages and cities. You have Spiez, for example, with a beautiful castle, with vineyard as well. Then you have, for example, Sigriswil, which is also a nice village with a beautiful suspension bridge. And last but not least, you will also find Thun. Thun is a beautiful medieval city surrounded by 5 castles. It's actually one of the biggest cities in our region, and it has a lot to offer, especially also shopping facilities. There's a lot of culture behind. Of course, you can also visit a lot of restaurants with good food.
Great. All right. Well, we'll come back to Lake Thun in a moment, but if we can go back to Lake Brienz, you told us a few things there about the town of Brienz itself and the wood carving traditions there. What are some of the other popular things to do around Lake Brienz?
Well, in Lake Brienz, you will also find typical Swiss villages like Iseltwald. Iseltwald, it was elected many times as one of the most beautiful towns, or you could better say villages in Switzerland, because it lies on a half island. And just next to it, there is also a smaller island called Snail Island. And it really looks like Switzerland on a postcard. It's a very beautiful spot, and it was used, especially during the last years, many times for movie scenes. Iseltwald is also the perfect spot if you want to hike to Giersbach Falls. The Giersbach Falls are very stunning waterfalls near Iseltwald. If you want to go there, you just need to hike 1.5 hours. You can walk along the lakes or through the woods, and then you will arrive at Giersbach Falls. The stunning waterfalls are running running down about 500 meters in 14 steps. So this is really unique in Switzerland. At Giersbach, you will also find the biggest private nature park in Switzerland. And there's also a beautiful hotel, the Grand Hotel Giersbach. Just to go up there to the hotel, you can hike up, or you can also take the oldest funicular in Europe to go up there. So it's a very stunning place, which you shouldn't miss. But of course, you should also visit the village of Brienz, the wood carving village, to discover all the sculptures, to discover all these very tiny, beautiful wooden houses with the Swiss architecture. But there is much more to see and to do in Brienz, of course.
I know you can do a lake cruise on Brienz, and that's part of the public transport system. But what other activities or water-based activities are available on the lake?
Well, there are a lot of water activities which are doable, especially on both lakes. On Lake Brienz, Lake Brienz is very famous for jet boating. So we have also outdoor providers in Interlaken. You can book every activity through them, even on the water or in the water. Or just another tip is kayaking, especially in winter. It's a very nice, beautiful experience. So you will get a dry suit. Of course, we have a long experience. So Interlaken can really give you all the providers to help you with instructions. They give you the material, the equipment. They pick you up. They bring you back. It's a very nice activity in the heart of Interlaken, in the middle of the nature, to do some kayaking, for example. We are also able to customize your tour to the physical conditions of the participants, for example. And especially also during bad weather, it means when it rains or even when it's snowing. This is a very unique experience to do kayaking. So bad weather doesn't exist in Interlaken. There are a lot of activities which are doable also in bad weather, like jet boating, of course, and also kayaking. So both activities are doable 365 days a year.
Yeah, great. Okay, so if one of our listeners is visiting Interlaken and they want to go to Brienz or to Giersbach Falls, is the boat the only option, or are there other ways they can get there?
In the whole destination, you can move around in a very, or you can move around or travel in a very sustainable way. It means more or less a lot of things in Interlaken itself are easy reachable in walking distance, but then you can, of course, take the bus or the train or the boat. If you want to discover, for example, Brienz, you have many possibilities. You can, for example, take the train of the Zentralbahn from the train station Interlaken East to Brienz. On the other hand, you can also take the boat from Interlaken East to Brienz. This is a little bit longer, but it's a very nice experience. The boat cruises on Lake Brienz are only running in winter time, are only running in summertime. So in the winter, it's unfortunately not possible to reach the villages Iseltwald or even Giersbach Falls by boat.
Okay, so train only and public transport only, excluding the boats during the winter.
Yes.
Yeah, and one a day trip that I did last year when I was in the region was we took the train from Interlaken to Brienz, had a look around there. Then we took a bus and went to the Traufer workshop just above Brienz, which was fantastic. I'd seen some images on Instagram of the wooden cows, and so we went there, and then we caught the bus back and then hopped on the boat to cruise back to Interlaken. So it's just all so seamless, isn't it? And the timetables are perfectly coordinated, so you never have to wait very long if you're changing from one mode of transport to the other.
Yes, of course. And by the way, you can discover Interlaken in a very sustainable way. I always recommend all people to buy a Swiss travel pass. It's all in one ticket where you can use all trains, all buses, and all boats. You have access to more than 500 museums in Switzerland. And there are also some activities or even experiences which are free of charge, like also the Ballenberg Swiss Open Air Museum near Brienz. Or you have also other reductions for funiculars or even for cableways and cogwheel trains from 25% up to 50%.
Fantastic.
So it's really, really worth to take it. Yes.
Yeah. Are there any secret places or hidden gems around Lake Brienz that you can share with us that people may not hear about in a regular travel guidebook?
You mentioned it already. There are a lot of hidden gems. I want to start with Ballenberg, with the Ballenberg Swiss Open Air Museum, which was opened 1978. So if you want to jump into Swiss architecture, seeing or feeding some Swiss animals like goats and cows and learn more about Swiss handcraft, you should definitely go there. And of course, with the Swiss Travel Pass, it's free of charge. On the other hand, you already mentioned it, the Traufer Experience World, which is famous for his wood carving sculptures, especially the typical Swiss cow, the wooden Swiss cow, which you can find in every souvenir store in Switzerland. You can go there. It lies in Hofstetten near Brienz. You can reach it very easily by bus from Brienz in about 15 minutes by bus. You reach the Traufer Experience World, and you have the possibility there to carve and to paint your own wooden cow during a workshop. And the Traufer Experience World is also allocated to a very nice hotel, the Board Hotel with 31 rooms. Of course, you can also combine your visit of the Traufer Experience World with a visit of the Swiss Open Air Museum Ballenberg. Or there's just another hidden gem up to Giersbach. It's called the Axalp, which lies on 15,000 meters over sea level. It's about 35 minutes away from the village of Brienz. And if you go up there, you are in the middle of the nature. There is a nice trail, like a very nice path with wooden sculptures to a beautiful lake, which is doable, which you shouldn't miss. So there are a lot of hidden gems in and around Brienz to discover. And of course, a lot of people are using Brienz, especially if you want to go, if they want to continue also to Meiringen. There are some gorges like the Aare Schlucht, for example, the gorge of the Aare, or some other waterfalls which are very stunning and popular.
Okay, well, there's a couple of new places that I'll have to make sure I visit now that you've shared them with us. Okay, let's head on over to the other side of Interlaken to Lake Thun. You mentioned earlier Spiez and the town of Thun itself. What are some of the other places that we can visit around the lake?
Well, there are a lot of small villages which you can visit. Not only Spiez with a beautiful vineyard, but it's really worth probably to start with Spiez because they started already more than 1,000 years ago to plant wine. The area is very small, about 11 hectares. They're producing very excellent white and red wine, but in a very limited quantity, but in a absolute fantastic quality. But you can also, for example, take the boat and cross the lake and go to Oberhofen. Even in Oberhofen, you will find a lot of, there's not only castles, there are also very nice restaurants where you can enjoy the view, or you can go up to Sigriswil. Sigriswil is a beautiful village, and you can cross the Gummi Schlucht. There is a beautiful suspension bridge. I always recommend people to do a fondue backpack tour, which you can buy in Interlaken. So you will get a pack of fondue in a backpack. Everything what you need to prepare your fondue on the hiking tour. And there are some very nice areas where you can prepare you and eat your fondue on the way, for example, to Thun. Thun, it's the beautiful medieval city I already mentioned. And of course, above Thun, there are other hidden gems which you shouldn't miss, like the Stockhorn, for example. So from Thun, you can take the train, for example, direction Spiez. From there, you can move on direction Stockhorn. Stockhorn is a beautiful cableway. And there are also stunning lakes, or there's also the Niesen Mountain, for example, with the longest staircase in the world, but you don't have to go up. And you reach it very easy from Müllenen in only 20 minutes. So there are a lot of points of interest, a lot of viewing points. There's also the Niederhorn, for example, or which is a stunning place with a funicular, with a gondola. And you have always in and especially around Interlaken, you find a lot of stunning panorama points with a beautiful sights on Lake Thun. Last but not least, there is also another hidden gem at Lake Thun, the Saint Beatus Caves. You can easily combine a visit with a boat trip, for example, from Interlaken West, or even from Thun or from Spiez. And you can combine it also with a nice hike of about 40 minutes, and then you will reach the caves. For a visit of the cave, you need about 90 minutes. You can also have a guided tour and learn more about the caves, about stalagmites and stalactites. The St. Beatus caves are actually not only open in summertime, they also open in wintertime, especially during the weekends, Saturday and Sunday. They just recently opened a new restaurant, and they have a new illumination system, new light system, I wanted to say, within a very nice atmosphere. Even there are a lot of events. You can even eat raclette, some Swiss specialties in the cave, and there are also a lot of music events as well. If you want to sleep in a cave, of course, you can do that as well. This is also possible on demand. But there is much more to see at Lake Thun, especially Thun itself, the beautiful medieval city, has a lot to discover. Also there, you can always do a guided tour and learn about the history of this medieval city. You can even discover the 5 castles in and around Thun. And the whole region has so much to offer. It's really amazing, and especially you can combine cultural heritage sites with cities or villages and nature, which is really unique in Switzerland.
Yeah, absolutely. So are the transport options for visiting around Lake Thun similar to they are to visiting around Lake Brienz?
So from Interlaken West, you can take the train to Thun. You should be there in about 40 minutes. So you have trains direction Bern. Even Bern, the Swiss capital, is easily reachable in only 1 hour from Interlaken. But there are also buses, regular buses, direction Brienz and Thun on one side, but also on the other side, you have a lot of bus options. If you want to discover the St. Beatus case, for example, if you want to discover villages like Oberhofen or even Thun. And last but not least, you can also reach most of these villages, and especially the bigger villages or towns like Brienz and Thun by boat. Very easily, 365 days a year.
Okay. You mentioned the castles a couple of times there, and I visited Thun and Spiez Castle myself, and they're both wonderful, and the views from the tower over the lake are just amazing. What are the other 3 castles, and are they open to visitors as well?
Of course, there are a lot of castles which you can visit. You have, for example, the Castle Schadau, which lies at Lake Thun. It's also a hotel, so if you ever dream to sleep like a queen or like a princess in Interlaken, you can do it, because they have limited rooms available. They are often used for couple, especially, also for wedding. It's a beautiful wedding area as well, the Castle Schadau. Then we have, of course, the castle in Castle Thun. There you have, there's also a museum inside, which you shouldn't miss. You can really climb up one of the towers. If you look out of the tower, you have this beautiful, this stunning view to Eigermönchen-Jungfrau, to the city, over the city of Thun, and also the stunning river Aare. But then there is also the Castle Oberhofen, For example, we already talked about the castle in Spiez, which you shouldn't miss. All these castles, you can reach them within short term, especially with the public transport system. I always recommend to take the bus or even the boat, and you can easily stroll around. So all of these castles, there are a little bit, or most of them, they are a little bit similar. There is really the Castle Shadow, which is a bit out of the box, and also the castle in Thun, which has a very nice museum which you shouldn't miss.
Mm-hmm. Great. And the castle in Oberhofen, a lot of people have probably seen photos of that. It's got the incredibly beautiful tiled roof with the green and sort of gold-coloured tiles. It's quite well known, I think, too.
It's also quite well known, the castle in Oberhofen. It has also a beautiful park nearby. And even if you want to hike a little bit in the area, you just want to relax. It's a very the castle Oberhofen is a very romantic place. It was built in the year 1200, and it has also a nice history and especially a spectacular view over the lakes and to the mountain. Inside there is a beautiful restaurant, and it has really one of the most beautiful gardens probably. And even if you reach it, for example, by boat, it's really stunning because it looks directly at the lake. There are also a lot of events inside, especially concerts, exhibition, and there's also a beautiful museum which you shouldn't miss. So there are these 5 restaurants, these 5 museums, sorry. Of course, there is also another one, the Schloss Hüneck. I don't know if you had already time to discover it. It's a castle from the 19th century. It lies in Hilterfingen, which is also very well known for his wine. And also there is a beautiful park. It's a very romantic place as well. So in Interlaken, you have the possibility to discover all these 5 castles very easily.
Okay. So with castles and beautiful nature and lovely towns and villages to visit, and caves and suspension bridges, how would you choose to spend the perfect day around Lake Thun?
Well, I would probably take the train, for example, from Interlaken itself. When I'm staying in Interlaken, I would take the train. And then I would move forward to Spiez. There I would take some time to discover the castle. Probably it's also worth it to invest some time for a wine degustation because the wine is really excellent. From there, you could probably easily take the boat. You can cross Lake Thun. And then you could go, for example, to the famous St. Beatus caves via Sundlaunen. You can do a very small hike up to the St. Beatus caves because they're very mystic and very special. The caves, the caves are a real hidden gem. And after a visit of the caves of the St. Beatus caves, you can still take the bus and go on, for example, to Hilterfingen, for example, or where you can visit the Schloss, the Castle Hüningen, or you can move on also to the city of Thun and to jump into one of the biggest cities in the whole canton, Bern. Probably you have some time for a guided city tour or even for a guided castle tour, because it's really worth it, and you can finish your trip with a nice dinner in one of the excellent restaurants in Thun.
Wonderful. All right, so before I let you go, do you have any tips for our listeners who are planning to visit the Interlaken Holiday Region?
Of course. When we're talking about Interlaken, as I mentioned it before, Interlaken is also very well known as, you could say, the hub, the access to the famous Jungfrau region, to the mountain area. And of course, everybody knows that Interlaken is also the starting point to Jungfraujoch, top of Europe. Jungfraujoch lies on 3,500 meters over sea level, and you can reach it easily in a cogwheel train from Interlaken via Grindelwald or via Lauterbrunnen. Lauterbrunnen is very famous for his waterfalls. In the whole valley, you will find 72 waterfalls. And if you move on your trip, you can continue your journey via Kleine Scheideck. You can jump again into the train and reach finally the highest train station in Europe on 3,500 meters, Jungfraujoch, top of Europe. From there, you have the most beautiful view to the longest glacier in the Alps of Europe, which is actually the Aletsch Glacier with a length of 21 kilometer. The glacier is still very thick. At the thickest point, it's about 900 meters thick. So there you have access 365 days to endless snow and ice. And there's also a lot to see. You can walk inside of a glacier. There's an ice pavilion, for example. There are also nice restaurants on top. And 2020, we just opened the new Eiger Express, which is a new connection, a faster connection from Interlaken to Jungfraujoch, top of Europe. Instead of taking the cogwheel train of 2 hours, you can take the train now from Interlaken to Grindelwald terminal. There's a new terminal, and then you can take the new cableway of the Eiger Express. They take you up in only 15 minutes to the Eiger Glacier on 3,000 meters over sea level. From there, you can jump again into the cogwheel train, and you reach the top of Europe faster. Instead of 2 hours, you need only 1 hour and 13 minutes. Then there is another nice new attraction, which is the Golden Pass Express. Probably you heard already about that. It's a beautiful panoramic train, which is connecting destinations Interlaken in the German part of Switzerland with Montreux at Lake Geneva, which lies in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. So this new train connection is actually also connecting two World UNESCO nature heritages together. The Lavo on one side with Jungfrau Aletsch in Interlaken. So this train makes it very special. You need only 3 hours, and it's also really worth it to take the train in a direct connection from Interlaken to Montreux, or even the other way around, whatever you prefer.
Well, there's certainly a lot to do, and you can understand why people like to come to Interlaken and spend quite a few days or even a week or so there, because there's so much to do both in the immediate vicinity and as you said, going a bit further on to somewhere like Montreux. Thank you very much, Renato, for sharing all that with us. I know that many of our listeners will be including the Interlaken Holiday Region in their itineraries. So I'm sure that all the information that you've shared with us today will help them to finalise their itinerary and decide exactly which places they're going to see and what things they're going to do when they're there.
Thank you very much, Caroline. It was a pleasure to talk about Interlaken, and I really hope to see you all soon in Interlaken, Switzerland, in one place.
Thanks, Renato.
Thank you.
Has Renato given you even more reasons to visit the Interlaken Holiday Region? Whilst it may be the mountains and waterfalls, or even the adventure sports that first piqued your interest about this idyllic Swiss destination, as you've heard, there are so many other reasons to visit too. Castles, caves, customs, cruises and charming villages are just some of the many attractions of Lake Brienz and Lake Thun. So I encourage you to spend some time exploring the region further. You won't be disappointed. You can find more information about the Interlaken Holiday Region on the website interlaken.ch. I'll include that link in the show notes, along with links to detailed guides about the Swiss Travel Pass, which Renato mentioned, and lots more great resources about the Jungfrau region and Berner Oberland. The show notes are at holidays2switzerland.com/episode 72. Thanks again for joining me today. If you found this episode helpful, I'd love it if you would leave a rating or a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks in advance. Until next time, tschüss!
If you'd like more great resources to help you plan your dream trip to Switzerland, there are lots of ways to connect with us. Visit our website holidays2switzerland.com, sign up for our monthly newsletter, or join our friendly, helpful community of past and future travellers in our Switzerland travel planning group. You'll also find the links to connect with us in the show notes for this episode. Show notes and a list of all previous episodes are available at holidays2switzerland.com/podcast. Don't miss out on your fortnightly dose of Swiss travel inspo. Hit the subscribe button on your favourite podcast app so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave a rating. That's all for this edition of the Holidays to Switzerland Travel Podcast. Thanks for joining us and happy travel planning.